Good. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Concrete Matter sharing session, the 13th sharing session. So if you have to leave later, please leave it during the break period. So the format will start with an introduction from my side. And then today we are very honored. We're going to talk about urban mobility and very honored that we invited two speakers, Mitch and also Jeffrey. So as introduced in the Instagram story, so they have done marvelous job of their own projects on urban mobility. So maybe just a disclaimer, today's topic will not so much on architecture itself. It will be more on the urban planning and urbanism kind of topic. Okay, so yeah, so let's dive into it. So before let me show something. I have prepared, do a bit of homework. Can I guys see my slides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, let's do it. Let me see my slide. Okay, I just want to do a bit of quick introduction. So for those who don't know about urban mobility, so I want to know a bit more. Oh, Claire is here. Okay, so yeah, let's do this. So yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, thank you for speaking with us. So today we have Mitch and Jeffrey. Okay, so urban mobility, comparing the words transportations and mobility, right? The difference here is the capability to move. And then when we put an urban in front, when we're talking about the movement in an urban context. So just to understand a bit more on the types of urban mobility, thanks to the website, whatever below stated there, just to avoid any copyright issues. So there are three major types of transportation. One is the public transit, whereby is access for all, and then as long as you pay a fare, and then you can board on this transportation. So the objective is to transport a large amount of people and also achieving an economic of scale. So that's why it's cheap. It should be accessible for all. So a lot of architects or urban planners actually targeting this kind, I think favor this kind of transportation, I would say. And then as compared to individual transportation, where we have car or walking, cycling, motorcycling. And then this is different from cities to cities. So like walking, for example, it's 88% of all movement in Japan, whereas this figure is only 3% in Los Angeles. They favor car more. And then in some urban setting, freight transportation, it's a big thing because they are a city of production and consumption. So freight means transportation of goods. So transporting things to train, bus, lorry, vans, or planes. And then especially in the era where e-commerce is blooming, this aspect is something that we can look into it as well. So I just want to share a video that I came across on YouTube. This is actually by, I think, CNBC, I think, CNBC International News, was actually make a 6-minute short video on this pandemic affecting urban mobility. So I extracted 3 main points to share about here. And then one of the main points the video was sharing is the impracticality of social distancing in public transport. So as we all know, social distancing, the 1 meter or 2 meter thing, has been implying in every public transport, right? And then he was just highlighting that cities like London or even like Singapore with all this great public transport, right? Having these rules implying is actually making it very ineffective or impractical. So imagine a bus that can take about 20 to 30 people. Right now you can only take 10. And then it's a waste. So it's like back to the objective that we mentioned earlier, transporting large people and also achieving an economy of scales. So, and then if we don't use public transport and also reverting to the use of car, it's going to worsen, and it's in like back to the worsen the pollution issues. So because of this, people new ways of transportation start to arising, which what they call micro mobility vehicles. So this is including the PMD bikes, scooters, skateboard, this kind of other vehicles. But then I'm just wondering that because this kind of micro mobility vehicle is actually not new, and also has been seen in a lot of places. So in the video, they shared about these micro vehicles is blooming, and then they expected. So as you can see from the bottom left graphics, right, they are saying that the global e-scooter market is going to double in 10 years, in 2020, and then 2023 is going to be yada yada yada. But at the same time, if we are to draw a comparison in what's happening in our region, like Asia Pacific or Singapore specifically. So LTA is Land Transport Authority in Singapore. They are having these enforcement operations over all these PMDs. So people have been using them to speed on the footpath and then endanger other pedestrians, etc. So I just want to highlight the complications here. I'll not really have a solution. Is that, you know, all these what is the problem with all this vehicle renting as well? Because to companies, these are actually very cheap options. They can always provide a bike, and then when they are malfunction, it's actually more costly to repair them or to maintain them. So all these bike renting, vehicle renting vehicles, right, at the end will just end up like a bunch, it's just garbage over there. People just throw it over there. So there's a thing called bike graveyard in China after all this bike share bubble bursting happened. Yeah, so I just want to highlight the issue over here. So especially during this period of time where we still relying public transport, and then we cannot use public transport, and then some of them we cannot afford car, and then if we're going to go for this direction of micro mobility vehicles, are we going to end up something like this is what happening in China, or is there a better solution? So these are some of my questions. So if in the audience you guys have an answer, you have an opinion to share, and especially from the speakers, definitely please do address them later on during your sharing session. Right, I'm giving you pressure, Mitch and Jeffrey.
Well, I do address that later.
Yeah. I mean, being a cyclist yourself, I'm thinking you have some opinions on that. And then the third point. Sorry? Yeah.
You carry on. I will talk about it later.
Yeah, sure. So, and then the third point from the video that I find it very interesting, it's more on the design side, because the video was drawing a history precedent. So there's this called Victoria Embankment in London at the River Thames. It's a very famous promenade and a tourist attraction. But then this embankment was built back in 1870s during the cholera outbreak. So just to give a bit of history class over here. So back then they don't have like a proper sewage system. So all your sewage, they go into this River Thames, and then people drink water from this river as well. So it's like you're drinking whatever you're shitting in it. So that's why the cholera outbreak. So this embankment was built to house the sewage system. So the video was claiming that pandemic has always left their mark in the society. So they are just asking that. So since we're having this COVID pandemic right now, what kind of mark that we're gonna leave behind, especially in a city setting, you see? So I think me, in my opinion, I'm actually very excited. Because like, in a way, it's like a monument. You see that when you see Victoria Embankment, you remember back then there was a period in the history, you know, there's this outbreak. So will there be any interesting changes or like a permanent structure that can address this COVID? And then in the future, people look at this structure or this planning of the city and back then, because we need this goddamn social distancing, you know. Yeah, these are just some of my thoughts from the video. All right, thank you. That's all from my side. I hope you guys enjoyed that introduction. And yeah, Nicholas, you were saying something? Nicholas is gonna mute.
No, sorry. No, I was just replying to Yvonne. It's okay. Continue.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about the later in the Q&A on the comments. So right now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Mitch. yeah, the floor is yours. You may share your slides and also introduce yourself for a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, I share my slide first. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Joey, for the amazing introduction, and definitely raised a lot of interesting questions we could discuss later on. And so I do a little bit introduction for myself first. I'm Mitch. I graduated from Taylor's in 2015. So after graduated from Taylor's, I worked for a local developer firm for 2 years in project management and urban designer. As an urban designer, and then I continue my studies in Barcelona for my master in city resilience design and management. So staying in Barcelona really inspired me a lot, and it makes me realize where my true passion is, which is building cities for people and also urban mobility. So from there, I also get some opportunities to further explore on urban mobility. So this is what I would share with you guys. So this is like the outline of today. My intention of this sharing is to introduce the concept of super block and also its application in an Asian context. That is my previous project with my previous firm. And also moving on from the planning perspective to the policy making perspective, I also involved in a research project. It's more on policy making, so it's inclusive urban mobility. That is my project during my internship. So I'll start from here. So this is Barcelona, and so this is Sagrada Familia, and this is where I stay. So it's just like 10 minutes away. Yeah. So I think most of you guys have seen this image before. It's an aerial view of Barcelona. And so as you can see, it's a very dense city. And to give you a brief context about that, the population density is twice as much as Kuala Lumpur's population density. So, and also you can see from the plan, there's not many green spaces over there. So that is why Superblock came in. So Superblock is a government-funded city planning project, and it's an urban strategy. So currently there are 6 Superblocks in Barcelona. And why Superblock is because they need, so like what I mentioned just now, there's not many green surface in Barcelona, and the council actually took it as one of the parameters of increasing 1 meter square for every citizen for the green surface. So they take this as their parameter to improve it into the planning. And so by that, because you reduce the space occupied by the motorized vehicles, you could improve the air quality and also reduce pollution as well, and also to promote the sustainable mobility. And so what is Superblock? So before that, even myself, I always thought that Superblock is this grids, like very nice grids, but actually it's not. So Superblock is something like this. Take this 3 by 3 block. So when we group we group smaller blocks together and form one bigger block. So this is called Superblock. And so, okay, so for one for one block, the diameter is like 120 by 120. So one Superblock is approximately like 400 by 400. So it's proven to be a walkable distance. And also Superblock means that, so this forms a perimeter, and within the block itself, you could only travel with a very slow speed. But at the perimeter itself, the vehicles can still move in normal speed, but in a one-way traffic only. So it's like one way, single loop, and this is to discourage them from driving. And also because the inner of super block, there's not many activities, traffic activities now. So the intersections could be redefined and to change their purpose as public space right now. So yeah, this is like what I mentioned just now. So this is the normal situation where everything move in their normal speed, and this is the super blocks model. So the motorized vehicles are only allowed to move at normal speed at the perimeter, and within the super block they can move in a very slow speed. And so now the space is like returned to the people, so they can carry on with their activities in the public space. So this is what I mentioned for the intersection. So now the intersection is redefined with tactical urbanism, and you can place many like furnitures in that place. So and now instead of like, let's say you are driving a car and you couldn't pass through this directly, and you need to like take another an alternate route. So this is to discourage driving. And yeah, so and you also can see like this, the path is not linear. So this is intentionally made to slow down the vehicles as well. And also the placing of furniture is also according to the function of the shops around as well. Like there's a library here and there's a bar here, that they know that there are like places that might need more sittings, so they will allocate more outdoor sittings and also benches around this area. And so tactical urbanism is the way. So as you can see from these pictures, these photos, it's not like a very curated installation or very artsy kind of stuff. It's something that really cheap, that you can just use paint to paint the floor, and then it's very fast as well. So yeah, this is what tactical urbanism is. It's really cheap and fast, and the community can come together and discuss what they want, and they can execute this together. And also, why tactical urbanism for super block is also because they actually have plans for developing the intersection into something else. It's just that is in the planning stage, or they haven't thought of a very concrete solution, but they wanted to make something, like they wanted to change the current situation. So I see that this is quite a smart strategy for an intermediate solution. So yeah, this is super block at night. Normally there's a lot of people, but maybe that time was during winter, so not much people, but normally people would like sit there and like read, talk to their friends, hanging out. So yeah, it's quite a nice place, and it is also like one of my favorite place in the city. Yeah, I can show you a video. Yeah, so it's something like that. Yeah, it's really cheap and fast solution. Just use everything is just paint and sittings. Yeah. So I think you guys understand like the concept of super block now. So now we move on to like how it could adapt in like different contexts. So now just now I mentioned there are like 6 super blocks in Barcelona, and there are already some European cities and also Latin American cities that try out super block and adopt super block strategy. And this cultural super block project is proposed for Shenzhen. So it's the first Asian context to try this, and it's for international competition. And this is my previous project with my previous firm. I was working with Vicente Guayat, just to give a little information. So he was the chief architect of Barcelona City Council, and also he's the founder of IAC. So he is really familiar with all this urban strategy of from a public sector kind of view. So this is our proposal for Qianhai Shenzhen. So this, as you can see, there's a axis, like a colorful axis here, and it's meant to be like that. It's meant to be that colorful because it's to inspire, like improve the walking experience. So people will more tend to like to walk on the vibrant streets, and so Qianhai is like a coastal city. So this is there's a bay here and there's a mountain here. So this axis is to connect the mountain to the bay. And also there are a lot of different activities and super blocks around. So this is to give a little context about the existing condition. So this is the site, and the site is sandwiched between two highway, and it's like the distance is like 500 meters, but there are like different smaller blocks which make up like 120 meters. So it can still be viewed as a mesh structure, and so it's an ideal model for the super block strategy. And also, actually, we're facing quite a limitation here as well, because because there are some existing buildings around, like there's this hospital, and there's the schools in purple color. So these big blocks existing by like one single block itself. So the essence of super block is to like pacify the streets, is slow down the streets. So how we achieve that is to first we maximize our utilization of the underground space. So we move all the parking spaces into the underground spaces underground, and also the entrance and exit for parking lots will be distributed along the perimeters of the super blocks. So they enter at ground level. And also the like the super block in Barcelona, the motor vehicles are only allowed to move in single direction, and also around the perimeter itself. And also in all these pacified areas, there will be a lot of like cultural hotspot and cafe, art hubs. So this is to make the walking experience be more interesting, to encourage people to walk. And also there will be a lot of like bicycle parkings around this area, so that they will choose active mobility as their transport options. And also, since I mentioned there's like a mountain here and also the bay here, so we actually wanted to encourage people to walk from there to there. So there are a lot of underground walkways and also sky bridge to promote uninterrupted continuity of the walkway. So this is there are some diagrams to show, like for better understanding. So this is the speed limit. You can see like the black grids are moving in the normal speed, and the green are local networks. And for this, we have two different kind of nodes. The red nodes are the transit nodes, which means you can place like bus stop, metro stations around these few spots, so that people could disembark here and then they could walk into the super block by just walking. And then these green nodes are the cultural and artsy spot. Yeah, and this is the parking entrance, like what I mentioned just now, is distributed all along the perimeter. So as you can see, like now it's quite a walkable and vibrant neighborhood with a lot of activities. And you can see from this section as well, now you can see the proportion like for car versus people. So the spaces are cleared for the street spaces are cleared for people to carry out the public space activities, and you could also have like more outdoor sittings for cafe and restaurant. Yeah, so this is the artsy stuff I mentioned just now. Yeah, so this is all about Superblock, and I think this is like what we can do as a designer or planner, viewing it from an urban design or planning perspective. And now we'll move to the policy making part. So inclusion is a project I work with Rupert Consult. Is part of my internship, and it's a project funded by European Union. And so this project I work on is one of the deliverables of the project. So because Joey mentioned before, like maybe you guys will wanted to know what is an urban mobility consulting about, like company about. So our company act like a project manager. So we have like recruited consultants from different area, like urban design or engineer, or maybe like tech consultant as well, to complete the research project, mostly from European Union, and they do take up other grants from different organizations as well. So we are from like quite a diverse team. Like most of my colleagues are geographers, and some of them have like environmental science major, and some of them like sustainable consulting, economics, so engineering. Yeah. So I am part of people focused mobility solution. So I would say this is like more on the soft side of mobility, because it's more about behavioral change, and also like about active mobility, walking, cycling. So it's more on the individual skill level. And for the other two teams, like collective and intelligent mobility, this is more on the tech side, like automated vehicles and like scooters, or yeah, that kind of thing, and apps. Yeah. And for integrated planning, maybe this is more relevant to us planners or designers, because this is like they are studying on how to provide a guideline to create a sustainable urban mobility plan. So it's like a guideline. Yeah. So during my internship, I worked on these two projects, Inclusion and also Sunrise. I will give more details about Inclusion later. And Sunrise is like neighborhood level scale of project. So it focused on like the community to co-create their ideal mobility scenario together. So it focused on co-creation. Yeah. And so what I do for inclusion is basically I have these 51 case studies from different cities, like focusing on these few categories. All these case studies are the ways to solve, to provide inclusive mobility solution. And what I did was I used this software called Envivo. It's a qualitative data analysis software. So from this, I get all the data processed, and I will produce visual tools to inform decision making and provide a report for decision makers. So the objective of this whole project is to inform the decision makers, to help them in making decision. Yeah, based on the findings we have. So yeah, this is the visual tool I mentioned about. So from all these 51 case studies, I find out like the 8 most important principles of inclusive mobility. Some are quite prominent, like affordable, accessible, safe, convenient. But some are like quite often overlooked, like empowering, empathetic, and also gender equitable. So I combining the user, specific user group, and also the needs they might need the most. So this is to inform specifically which aspect they should fill in the gaps to meet their needs, to meet the user needs. So the user groups is quite important at this in this report as well. This is quite a common group, but I would like to point out, like for disabled, there are different types of disabled, and also like people might overlook that they could categorize in one umbrella category, but as you can see, like people who suffer from sensorily impairment are much more vulnerable than people who suffer from physically impairment. And also like there are some users where there are impairments we couldn't observe from their appearance as well. So such as like people who suffer from mental illness or autism. So we need to acknowledge that these users are public transport users as well, and we need to take care of them. Like we need to take care of their needs as well. So this we have pointed out about this, and also like people with a lower income and job seekers, as well as migrants. So migrants, aside from the monetary wise issues, they will also have difficulties in access for some information, because like some of them, due to the language barrier, so they couldn't get the information they want. And also in a geographical wise perspective, like people, like also the way how our city design is designed for the cars but not for the people. So yeah, people living in rural area, or people without a driver's license, or students or youth that didn't own a car, so they might face this marginalized situation as well. Yeah, so we try our best to acknowledge all the users. So I also like chose some of like the interesting case studies related to all 8 principles. So for example, like this disabled person's freedom pass in London, so they can travel freely all year round in London if they have this pass. And also for this Wish Bus from Belgium is a community initiated bus that they could pick up, like it's formed by volunteers, and they could pick up people who need the service around the area because they have no public transport. So this is particularly useful for elderlies and also people without a car. Yeah. And also this Formentera taxi bus. Formentera is a tourist spot in Spain, but during the off-peak season, there are no public transport, but the local will still need to access to the places they want. So this is a demand responsive transport where they could hit a button in like intercom button in the bus stop, and then the taxi will come to them. And for this aspect is we often overlook, but is equally important as well, like gender equitable, empowering, and empathetic. So this Where app is a crowdsourced platform for information. So like you could evaluate the space about their safety and also the obstacles. So it's particularly useful for a single woman who travels alone, or those caregivers or pram users. So they will know like if the particular route they choose whether have any obstacles, and to decide before their journey. And also this disability awareness training for operator staff. So as you can see, then not all the solutions are addressed for not all the solutions are just for the user itself, but also like people who providing the service. So they are trained to be more empathetic and more aware of the user needs. So during a training, they will learn about what is the most efficient way to move a wheel car to a bus, and what if when you move the wheel car into the bus, there are like 2 pram users there, yeah, things like that. And also,
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you mind go back to the slide just now? Just now, I just find the Where app very interesting. You're saying that it's supported by crowd, is it? As in the information is given by the crowd as well.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, to help especially women to identify some dangerous area before they access it. But it could be a weapon itself as right. I mean, if I'm pervert, I could have give this information as a safe one, and then people might misinterpret. I mean, they believe the information, then they go there, but they are targeted by the pervert. Would that be an instances?
Yeah, because it's like crowdsourced, so it will have like different kind of information, like layering of information that you have to like go filter. So it's like I would say, I think it should be like a neutral outcome of that.
I see. So what happens is a group of pervert, then they just keep on surviving.
Oh, then I'm not sure about that.
I see. Okay, sorry.
I think the app developer, I think they would thought about this question as well. I think they have their ways to address this.
Okay.
Yeah. So as what I mentioned just now, so the purpose of this report is to help the decision makers for decision making. So, but not all the decision makers are from public sector. So we also need to cater to think of, like, let's say there's this startup owner from private sector that he wanted to start some business, and he come across this, so he could know what he could provide in terms of what he can do. And also, like, for community leaders who wanted to improve the mobility situation in his region, he will also can access to this like menu of the solutions. So like for public sector, there's like, because of the power of the authority they have, so they can do a lot of stuff in a nationwide scale, like for example, guidelines for transport providers, and also provide funding for investment, and also infrastructure upgrade. Things like that is mostly done by the public sectors. And also for private sectors, it's mostly on the tax solution or help in financial monetary wise. And for community leaders, it's more like a self-initiated thing, like collective transport route, and also some sharing schemes, either like ride sharing or vehicle sharing, so things like that. And also in this report, we also point out like gaps that could be improved, and in different aspects, like vehicle design, and also station and network and density. There's like, I'm not gonna list out every gaps here, but if you're interested, you can refer to the report. And so some of the interesting findings from the report is, so we need to address all needs of users that are vulnerable to exclusion. So not every user is just like being categorized in one group. Maybe they categorize in multiple groups, and that make them more susceptible to some situation. So for example, like comparing a single woman, young single woman with an elderly migrant woman. So the latter will will likely experience more vulnerable situation than during her daily commute. And also the role of ICT. So we all know that the technologies play a big role in this, but there could be like situation like that digital exclusion might happen as well, particularly for people who live in a remote area that no access to internet, and also elderly group who doesn't know how to use technology. So what we're trying to say is offline solution is equally important as well. So that you need to provide both. And also ensure gender equity. So according to a study, like women make 50% more trips a day than men, because most of the caregivers and also the pram users are women. And also, like, you need to send the kids to school, you need to go to groceries. So yeah, so women's care and need to be met for this. And also ensuring equity for the LGBTQ community. because like even developed countries, developed cities in Europe, when they mention about gender equity, it's always only women, so that we extensively pointed out that the safety of LGBTQ community must be acknowledged and addressed as well. And also like the role of volunteers, this is particularly more important in community, in a community context, because yeah, the self-initiated stuff, they will need like volunteers, and also it is highly depend on volunteer to ensure the sustainability of the solution. And also like consider of co-creation in when you think of inclusive mobility. So involve the community in making decisions, and also this could make them have more sense of ownership, and also like building the scenario of what they want truly. So I will end this with some of my thoughts for mobility challenges in Malaysia. So the first thing is definitely like we need integrated planning, because now when I mention urban mobility, actually I'm not sure if I should look for JKR, the transport department, or I should look for JPBD, the planning department. From what my experience and what I observe, I think these departments work very differently, and they don't really talk to each other. They don't have much collaboration. So this is something that definitely need to change. We need to have more dialogues and need to have more collaboration activities between them, more interdisciplinary researchers as well. Yeah. And also the second thing is more like a physical problem, like the most pressing.
Mitch, do you mind to explain a bit of the two government agency that you mentioned just now? Because like some of us might not know. I mean, I don't know.
Like JKR is the like the I forgot the name of the full name of it. Yeah. It's like Transport Authority in Malaysia.
Then the other one.
Then the other one is like the Planning Authority, JPBD.
Okay.
Yeah. So my experience is okay. I know someone from JKR, and when I asked him, like I try to do something in Malaysia, I try to ask like who can I look for, and he just give me a traffic consultant number. So it's really weird. Like like they also not sure who to look for. So definitely, then they need more dialogues between them themselves. Yeah. And also like network and connectivity. So this is one of the pressing issues, because this is also causing the first and last mile problem, which means like although there's like public transport station nearby your house, but you couldn't walk from your house. You still need to take a bus or taxi or car to reach the station. So this first and last mile problem is is discouraging people to take public transport. So yeah, I think we need to solve this. And also like infrastructure upgrade is important as well, like providing more intermodal options. And also education and awareness. This is something that I think is the lowest barrier and everyone can do, at least in this meeting, because behavioral change is definitely important, and it requires like knowledge transfer. Yeah, so we like growing up in KL, like we are educated that like we are made to believe that we couldn't survive without a car, but is that really true? And like for a city like Amsterdam 50 years ago, they were also full of cars. So that is something that definitely can change, and this is what we need to work on. Yeah. So I will end my presentation here today. So if you are interested to know more about the project, you can drop me a message. I will send that to you. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a very cute comic you have there. Was it like each comic that you draw? It's a urban mobility solution.
Not really. That is something that because it's like a record of my my studies when I was in Barcelona, because I didn't do architecture for my master's. I do master in city resilience design and management. Yeah, which is something not really related to the design itself, but more on like the current issues and stuff like that, more on like a systemic issues. So to make them to make myself to be clear on that, and I think it's a very it's quite good to disseminate this kind of information as well, because like things we learn are like mostly things like climate change, like gentrification, like all these concepts normally not really accessible if you are not in the field itself, or even like people wouldn't talk about what is green gentrification. So when I have the chance to access this, so I try to using layman terms and in a format that people would wanted to find out about. So this is why I draw the comics and also I write the description for that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Right now, let's have a very quick Q&A. I do have some questions. You guys want to start first? Anyone from the floor? Yeah. Anyone want to ask first? Outside, I will ask first. Okay, so I think I have some questions regarding the first project that you have shared, the one with the super block Barcelona. So in a way, I mean, I think it's a nice idea that you only have the vehicle circumference on the outside, whereas in internal, it's all the human orientated kind of pathway. Am I right? But then, can I say like this kind of approach is only applicable in a tabula rasa setting, meaning to say you have to kind of like demolish the entire place, or you have like a empty agriculture land, like what Yvonne suggested, then you can build from ground up. So places like, for example, like Nicholas mentioned, like KL, where else can we apply this super block idea though?
I think for this super block to be succeed, is like you need to have like it depends on like the function, the typography of the city itself. Like it has to be like really high dense. So I think the KL city center, Petaling Street, maybe there could be like the old city center with a walking fabric design, like because it was designed like 100 to 200 years ago, like where the vehicles are not that prominent yet. So the way the city design itself is for people to walk.
So you mean KL back then in 200 years is designed for people to walk?
Yeah, it's like when like the older quarters of the city. So so because it is designed for people to walk, because back then they don't have more transport options, so they can only walk. So those places with like higher density, so it is better. And also it has to be complemented with some mixed use function lah. Like if it's like all residents is nothing to walk also, like it's not interesting. The walking experience itself is not that interesting. But for my personal experience, I find it like for example in Bangsa, like for like the cafe area, I think it's also quite nice to walk because you have like all this cafe around and you can look at this stuff. And also like the KL city center, the old quarter side. Yeah.
So you're saying that it's possible for us to revert back to that era, given enough social effort measures or even government enforcement, we are able to do so.
Yes, and it has to be like progressively done. It's not like taking out all the car parks and saying you need to do this today. It needs to be like start with like from what I think.
Wawasan 2020.
I think you can start with like pilot projects first lah, like pilot project in certain towns, and also it has to be done step by step with like the education. You need to tell people to try this as well. If not,
we will come to that the mentality problem later. But before that, what are your thoughts, Jeffrey?
She's right. Older part of the city is built for a time when people didn't have cars.
Oh,
They had other types of vehicles. They had vehicles which were like rickshaws, or they had bullock carts. So in a way, they still needed flat areas and connected areas to get around. And
So
they
they
used the river a lot as well.
they used to what?
The river.
Oh, they use a lot of river. I didn't know about
In
that.
KL, you needed to take a sampan from Klang. Take 2 days. Takes two days to reach KL. So this is, we're talking which period in KL. But I think to apply the super block, we have to actually start looking at places that has very high density, which is like PPR flats. There are many in KL, but they're moving them out. KL's policy, or CBD policy, is actually moving people out of the city. So if you go down to downtown KL, you have very low population. And
The reason they are moving people out is because
well, for one is they want to develop to become a CBD more.
Something like Putrajaya, Putrajaya.
oh my god, I hate Putrajaya. I'm so
Putrajaya
sorry.
is exactly a super block. It's been designed by Americans to be a super block grid system. So if you're going to look at super block system, you can look at Putrajaya. But then nobody lives in Putrajaya.
Precisely. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't work in our context.
Yes, well, yes and no, because our old part of the city is actually very small. We don't have a super block per se like in Barcelona. We would have Sohos, so like double-story old shop lots, colonial buildings. So the density is still very low, but there's still some pockets of them, of residents in downtown KL. Very, very small pockets, but they are dying out, and every generation they're moving out. Gentrifying.
They are dying out because of gentrification?
For one, yes. Also, the business mode has changed because a lot of them are traditional trades that don't have any function because there's no community there and there's no need for them, there's no support. So the city has changed a lot in terms of being a function of what it is. Central market is not a market anymore, as you understand. So these are little community pockets that are needed for community to be markets, schools, everything else.
Yeah, I guess the idea at the end of the day is not because I believe that progression is needed. Some of the changes are needed. Gentrification is needed in order to advance. Then it's just like saying that we are not averse to car. We are not like averse to technology. It's not like completely demolishing car away, but you still need to have a balance in between. So yeah, it's just that I have very strong opinion about Putrajaya because I had Putrajaya as my final year project site. So we went down and studied. Megan, I'm not sure if you still remember that. So and then even I didn't, even as a super block idea, I don't know, the street is inhumane to walk, and then it's very, very wide.
It's American grid system.
Yeah, and then it's I don't know how to say it. Yeah. So
it is what it is. They had an ideal of what future city of Malaysia is going to be, and that was Putrajaya and Cyberjaya. It's a whole unit. Putrajaya is the CBD, and then Cyberjaya is where people stay and move in. But it's based on an American model. Yeah. And it's still using this model. Bandar Malaysia is going to be exactly the same as well.
So if I were to be provocative a bit, and then if I were to use Putrajaya, let's say it's a field example, and then to compare to the competition that Mitch, you have done for China, would you say that your China project will be more different from Putrajaya, or it's going to be the same thing? Because I saw that the proposal within a block, it's planned for human walking, but how far is the distance? And then the climate is definitely different from Barcelona, am I right? In China.
Yes, and I think it's because of the, like what I mentioned just now, like it's like a mixed use typology. You have schools and you have residential area for that, and also you have hospitals. So definitely like this buildings axis itself already bringing in people, and also like landscape is important as well. Like showing you like the section I showed you just now, like things have to be designed in a human scale. Like, yeah, so if you want it to be like, if you want it to design for people, you wouldn't make the road for a car
So
very
wide.
wide. Yeah. You should have like more, like the place you can put in like small kiosk, cafe, like a fresco area, dining area, things like this. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the super block term is actually very misleading because it's actually to describe what Putrajaya is. That is a super block.
Mm-hmm.
Unit is a super block. But I was interested to answer a question that when someone asked about maintenance, and when Mitch was saying about that it's fast to implement this kind of facilities just by painting and putting planter boxes. The term is actually placemaking. This was actually initiated in New York City.
I think there's a website for it, I remember.
Yes.
It's a very extensive research on it.
Yeah. So she did it. She was a traffic commissioner in New York City. She's the one that converted New York City into a cycling city. So that was the initiation. Instead of spending a lot of money into build infrastructure, they can do it overnight just by putting planter boxes and painting the street. And then if it works, then only they would then apply building hard furniture and so on and so forth. So that is exactly how cities are approaching this to address this placemaking term. But yeah, it's the quickest way and it's the cheapest thing to do.
But the effort sounds like by the government, not really can be done by the individual level, am I right?
Well, the thing is, placemaking is a very Asian thing. It's just you can just use a name to put it. But if you go to any Asian streets, it is already being used by people. It's actually to repopulate the street for society use. So you go to any Asian street, Bangkok, or even you go down to Chinatown, you see.
You mean like hawker store and then just put table and chair, is it? That's placemaking.
That's already happening. So it's actually a very Asian thing.
I see. And you're saying that this kind of thing doesn't really seem much in a Western context.
Well, the Western context, there's a lot of regulation and limitation to like whether you can put, whether you can take over the space, public space, and so forth. So whereas in Malaysia is a very shared, Asian context is a very shared space. So different time of day will be a different kind of operation. So in a way, urban planners just put a word to it and a methodology and applied it. But if you go to any Asian streets, Chinatown exactly, or you go to Kampung Baru, you would see this placemaking happening. Daytime different, prayer time different, festival time different. So it's already happening, but we did not create a methodology to study that.
So what's our job here? Our job here is to remain as it is?
No. I mean, that is a way or how to apply a methodology to regulate it. Whereas if you understand how our society works, we really see it happening. So we should actually look at our own cities and understand how they work, how behaviors work, and then work around how that can be implemented, rather than giving out summons and trying to regulate it to what to how we want. Ideally, we should see how it's being used, and then how to keep the integrity of the community.
Nicely put. Thank you. Okay.
And that is where I think that the co-creation thing can come in, like the public sector could engage with the community and to seek a solution for both parties. Yeah.
But that actually related to the second project about the inclusion project, right? The one that I think it uses more kind of like public or crowd information in order to make some of the effort works. So of all the, because in the 51 case study that you have studied, and then you also presented a handful of solutions. I was just wondering that which are the one that you think is most interesting to you, the solutions?
I didn't put the one that I think is most interesting to me inside. There's this app.
Why not?
because due to the time constraint, like I think I could like mention it now in the discussion session. So there's this app that there's like a group of volunteers like it's for people who experience like sensory impairment. So let's say like I couldn't see anything, but I need assistance on how do I move through this. So, or I have like if I have autism, I'm not sure which way I can use. I'm uncertain about my direction. So someone could the volunteers could use the app and direct you how to use, like you can walk this, you can walk there, like get off the bus now, things like that. So it's like I felt like it's a very empowering solution for the users, because there's actually different solution for the disabled person, the users. Some are like providing convenience. So like there's a car like just at your doorstep and pick you up. So this is like providing convenience, but some are like providing like empowerment. So I think this is more interesting, so that you could travel by yourself next time. Yeah.
That's interesting. How about the LGBT community? Because I saw you highlighted as one of the target group. But then what are the suggested approach?
It's not that target group, but it's like the group haven't been mentioned widely enough. But yeah, so I think like we do see some of the news that I think it's in, I'm not sure if it's in London or what, like people would get hit in the bus, like
because they belong to the marginalized community.
Yeah. So and also like some of like drag queens, when they come out of party and they dress like that, and then they got hit, things like that.
So what do the app do? The app will say that this area is dangerous, that you don't go?
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be like that. I think it should be we should educate. We should focus our it's not like we ask the LGBT group member, no, you couldn't go there because it's dangerous. No, we are like restricting their freedom. So we should educate the straight people to understand, to respect.
That here comes the interesting part. I always think that, I mean, when you mention by education, so what sort of education? Because like to be honest, like how we get our car license over here, right? We all went to the same exam in a test center, and then maybe study 1 hour before the exam with a small booklet, study about the sign and etc. And then
I think it should be like a campaign kind of thing. And I have another very interesting example as well. So all of you guys, I think you guys know about for the KTM, we have this pink coach for ladies. You guys know about that? Yeah. So when I was mentioned that
I saw a man there. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, it's because it's for women's safety, so we need to have this coach. So then I saw like people would say that, oh, there's like some migrants that they don't know that this is belong to women's coach, and then they go in and then he got scolded, things like that happen. Now when I mentioned this to with my European colleagues, and they find it they find it unbelievable of we having this thing. We need to do until this extent, like separating coach for people. Like they say you should just educate. Like yeah.
Not exactly that, I guess. We're not as, although as civic conscious as we are, we don't practice that. There was a semi-government agency that was going to come out with an app, a crime app. In Malaysia, they work together with police, Malaysia, and then they will record high crime areas, and the app would then suggest you not to take this route, or this area is high crime area, and would divert you somewhere else. But it was never implemented because of privacy and I guess also political issues.
I see. But the information is released by the government or is by crowd?
So it is actually partially by government, because it's the police department that has records of all the crime areas, where the crime areas, so they will divert more patrols going there and so on and so forth. And then the other part of it is actually from your devices. Each of you definitely carry a phone right now, and without every time you sign up for a service, you're already actually agreeing to being tracked. So they can track every single move where you are. So this agency it's a semi-secret agency in Malaysia that
Cambridge Analytica. Okay, go on. Sorry.
they have an algorithm that can predict traffic, real-time traffic and future traffics, or do modeling to understand crime. So we are at the moment being tracked or tracked, and they know our every single move. So that's actually quite worrying when I went for that conference and that meeting. But they did talk about this app, but it never came out because it was too controversial.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, when you said that, I think it's already arrived with a lot of questions, in a sense that if I were to just talk about some companies who wants to, you know, bribe the government in order to not let people go near to these streets, and then so that all the shops can close down, a company could do that. And then if the government is corrupted, then this app, if it's prevalent enough in for the people, and then people will not go that area, and then that area immediately will become a slum. So it's so much power in that app though, and then who is
And
behind
also the
it?
control of data as well.
Yeah.
Collect data. So
Yeah, we speak about data like earlier, one of the sharing session as well, and then technology right now it's another big topic. Okay.
I saw Queenie ask a question
Yes.
about like the public engagement in the Superblock in Barcelona. So I'm not sure about when they are building that during the building Superblock process, because I wasn't there that time, but I did know that a lot of protests about Superblock as well, because they thought that it would cause green gentrification, and some of them thought it's not convenient, they don't have space to park their cars, and yeah, but like because it was at the beginning of the stage, like because when that time like people doesn't know that they could have this improve quality of life with the public space. So there are a lot of like posters hanging say no to Superblock, but after that it turns better, like people are using the public space, people are using Superblocks now. So I guess it was okay, like people just need to take some time to accept and like to experience first.
Certain solutions are actually habitual, as in like they are not used to it at the moment, but it has to be proven beneficial in the first place before people can, you know, get used to it.
Yeah, that is why also they started it as like pilot projects first, like in two, like they start with two first, and if the response is good, they will make it more like replicate the model in somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, is there any questions from the floor? If no, then we will continue with, you want to say something, Jeffrey?
I'm very interested in the program they use, the Nivo.
Oh yeah, please go. Any
But
question?
maybe we can talk about it directly. I can talk to you.
Yeah, sure.
Cannot. The information need to be shared.
Oh yeah. So the program it's developed, and how do they control the parameters, and how do you create a modeling?
Actually, like this software is kind of like, it's just like a knowledge management tool, like for you to, when you read a long passage and which words you think it is interesting, then you have to create the note by yourself, and you have to set that as parameter as yourself. So what you can gain from the software is they could help you to map like certain projections, like maybe the word frequencies being used, and also some relation between like users and also like their behavior, or things like that. You have to create the parameters by yourself. So it's like a knowledge management software.
So what kind of information you put into, and then what kind of outcome it comes up?
I put 51 case studies. I need to use the software to read and make my own notes. The software is just like helping you to visualize it in terms of like like a set of data and how they link if you make the changes. Yeah, you could categorize something as one category, like what I mentioned, like if like the long sentence, if I think that this is mentioned about accessibility, I will highlight that and tag it as accessibility, things like that. Yeah, so it's like help you to visualize the relation between the text and the information, but you still need to process it by yourself. Yeah.
I think Juming was asking, was it free?
I don't think it's free. I think it's a paid. Yeah, it's paid. It's a paid software, but don't download.
Oh, don't
Not
download.
worth it.
Oh, you have the cracked version, you can just share to us.
No, because it's my company software.
Ah, I see.
Yeah,
I think Amiru, you use that too, is it? You're saying something. It's a quantitative method.
Qualitative.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, thank you again. Yeah, we shall move on to the second phase. So right now, we have do anyone need a break since we have a small crowd today? If we don't need a break, we can continue the second session. And those who have to go, it's okay. You may leave right now. Thank you. Yeah. So if you have any further questions, we can definitely stay back and discuss later. So right now, I would like to hand the floor to our second speaker, Mr. Jeffrey Lim. So yes, you can go ahead. Yep.
Okay, give me a second. Let me just sharing my screen. Okay, can you see my screen, everyone?
Yep.
See the screen? Okay, good. So I don't do such crazy work as Mitch. I am more a lay person than anything. I'm not an architect. I'm actually a graphic designer. I was trained as a graphic designer, and I do many things. So these are just the 4 icons of the things I do, from design to photography. I work with bicycles, and at that time I used to collect a lot of strange stuff. But my background is actually in corporate identity. In my professional career, I worked for 7 to 8 years doing branding. Before it's even called branding. This was like back in 2007. But that's my expertise. My expertise is in doing corporate identity, thinking, and design thinking, and strategy. So I've only worked on two companies, which is Petronas in Malaysia. Then after that, I went to work in Singapore, and I worked on Sembcorp, Sembawang Corporation in Singapore. Each project took me 3 years. So that's it's a long, crazy project. But apart from that, I came back, started my own design practice. So I do design. I also go into design packaging, but mainly into corporate identity or branding. I do photography, and I love working with bicycles. I research a lot into the culture of bicycle making in Malaysia. And I also collect a lot of interesting things that you would say vernacular culture for Malaysia. Apart from that, I also do a lot of social projects, which are community building or social engagement. This is me with one of my major projects, which is the Bicycle Map project. I'll talk about it later. But that is one of my biggest projects. Before I started that, I did this project called Village Bicycles. It's called the Village Bicycle Workshop. And with that workshop, that started my interest into researching about cycling culture in Malaysia. I did film screenings, showing movies from overseas and also local movies as well, and in the region. We have a workshop of restoring old bikes, and we would also have community projects, and of course rebuilding bikes as well. So there's a lot of social engagement and also trying to build a community. All this started from my idea of coming back to Malaysia. I wanted to find my sense of belonging. In a sense, also trying to find and understand my identity here. So I started a lot of projects. This is just like one arm of it, a bicycle. There was photography, so on and so forth. So the biggest project that came out of Village Bicycle is the Bicycle Map project. I'm going to talk about this campaign today. So Cycling Kuala Lumpur is the name of the campaign. It started in 2012. Initially planned for 1.5 years for this project to happen, but it took me 2.5 years. And by the time we printed it, it was September 2014. It's a map that is the size of 110 square kilometers, and it maps out all the routes, cycling routes around KL. And it's volunteer built, so we collect the data from various volunteers and people on the ground, and we surveyed, and then we made this map. So my interest in cities, I think, came from that question of my sense of belonging. So my sense of identity. Why did my grandparents come here? What is this about this city and relates to me? So then it went deeper and deeper into understanding about the city and also urban planning as well. So here I'm going to show you more of the urban planning side rather than the cultural side. This is a streetscape of Penang Road, 1964. Of course, the advent of cars are coming, but you can see it's a very shared space, very minimal traffic markings, but it's a very shared space between, if you believe it or not, electric buses. We don't even have electric buses. Oh, well, we do have.
Was it tram?
It's not a tram. At that time, they didn't have the tram. The tram was already out, I think, in the 1920s or so.
I see.
But this is electric buses in Penang. And then right beside a beca, you can ride on a beca, and then people are cycling and walking on the streets. So if you look at the street, this is probably the ideal that we're trying to reach at the moment. But this was in 1964. Very interesting. And of course, how urban planners foresee how the road should be built. This is exactly what it is now, 2012. It's still the same. You have a lot of segregation now. Motorized vehicles have space on the road, and people who don't will be on the sidewalks and so on. So you start to see a segregation coming into the planning. So it's no surprise that Malaysia and now KL is rated as a D- in terms of sustainable cities, or I think mobility cities. So we are a car city, D-. This is 2015, 5 years ago. I think we maybe are C- now, maybe.
Did you mind explain a bit on the grading?
Grading. So I was asked a bunch of questions, but more or less they would see if they would have enough facilities for inclusion of non-fossilized vehicles, so non-motorized vehicles. So then there's a criteria into energy, into your density and so on and so forth. So then they come up with this grading, and then they get a D-, which is a car city. There's no denying we are a car city.
And sorry to interrupt. And why is the comparison against Dubai and Houston particularly?
It's not a comparison. It's in the same group. We are in the same group.
Okay.
Houston.
Okay.
So then they, I don't have the rest of the study here, but then different cities, then you would see in terms of if you're going to compare Copenhagen or you're going to compare Amsterdam, you're probably in the region of A and B. Whereas here, if you look at Malaysia, we would be in D-, because accessibility, affordability, you can see from the parameters that they put in here, those are how they graded it. So I went about, this came out after my map project. But let me talk about the map project first. The map, just to give you an idea of how big the map is, this is the area of KL, and that is PJ, and that's how far we are from the sea, and that's the size of the map. There are 11 districts in KL. I purposely made it horizontal and also addressing into MBPJ. This is MBPJ. I've also included here MBPJ's cycling route plan. This is to show the weaknesses in how our local government works. Because when they get budgeting or when they do planning, they only plan within their political borders. And as you can see, they never plan across borders. So that is one of the biggest weaknesses in doing policy and doing planning, because they don't plan within outside the borders. They never think about how to connect between different districts. So I think that's one thing I had to address. So that's why this map also crosses into PJ as well. And just to give an overview of the project has a base map that covers about 110 square kilometers of KL. We have volunteers from all parts of the city, and we would then we handed out empty maps. This was the first map, the white one was the first map that we had. We handed out that map, and then we got back data in terms of either coloring out the route, or there are many ways of giving us data, but that was one of the main ways. And then engagement with different communities, and then going down on the route and actually surveying all these routes from satellite images, from local data, and then coming up, drawing it onto the map, different kind of colors to denote different kind of categories, and then putting it into one big map. So that was the project in gist. This took 2.5 years. So, so here you can see some of the papers in terms of each section. Given this is very late in the project, so each section is given to a volunteer to double check the information. And then why this happened was because one of the findings from the project, as you can see, this is the whole map, 110 square kilometers. You can see the inner ring road. This is the inner ring road. And then different colors to denote different types of traffic conditions. Is that the city is segmentized. Segmentized in terms of how communities are grouped together. So, and also you can see from the color, there's also the cool and warm, which denotes the east and west. They are separated by the river, the main river, which is Kobat River. And each of this section denotes how that part of the city is built. So it also shows you the new barriers, which are the new highways and major roads that actually cut up communities. And just to zoom in on one, this is actually Bangsa. Maybe some of you know. But this is a sectionized area of Bangsa. And these people in this area would then only live within this area without going out. If you have to head out of this section, you will need to drive a car. I've circled all the areas where there are the crossing points for this section. So then you will see these are the most important parts of this section if you want to cross over onto the next section without driving a car. So these are all the crossing points that you need. And from that map, we also simplified the map into the key routes. These are the key entry points in the city. There are 8 entry points. 6 of them are on grade. 3 of them are by river networks. And then the inner city loop as well. There are 2 inner city loops. And you can see that heading west is always a big problem because we have a lot of hills. So the only way to head west is only by Federal Highway further down south, or you have to go up north, which is through Monkera. So this is the findings that we gave and handed over to the City Council. And of course, with the City Council, we worked with, at that time, Ahmad Faisal. Ahmad Faisal was the mayor. And we built some of the lanes. This is a pilot project. There were many pilot projects. This is 2015. So out of the 6 entry points, we chose the southeast entry, the southwest entry, and then it was built in 2015. And this is what it looked like. This is part of it. This is the best part of it, sorry. With mature trees by the river and existing space. So it's actually just an upgrade of the river reserve into a cycling path. So this was in 2015 when it was launched. Of course, now it's much, much more different because, of course, the River of Life came here. But then this was our biggest benchmark after the bicycle map project. Then after that, in 2017, they launched the city lanes, urban lanes, which we tagged the blue lane of KL. this project was also another pilot project. At that time, already it was the third mayor. I can't remember the name. But this was the plan with the World Urban Forum. It was initially planned to be about 11 kilometers of city lanes on grade. So this is actually very breakthrough because they put the bike lane on grade and on the road. It's never been done in Malaysia before, and it was a benchmark for Southeast Asia, I would say so. Of course, this is the planning department. We work with Urbanize. I think just now somebody mentioned Urbanize. And with I think this was the implementation department. It was spearheaded to be part of WF, World Urban Forum. And yeah, just overnight we had the links. So then the other part was then I started to understand also the roles that you have to play. In every city, you would have all these stakeholders. So I think I'm talking to a lot of urban planners, and maybe you're going to be consultants. You probably be an academic as well, or you might work in city council or in state ministry, or yeah, you probably be on the right. Whereas I would come from the left. I was mainly an activist and advocate. So I use a lot of academic papers and I use a lot of urban planner papers to promote and to understand how to create change. So that is my role. I think when you start to do planning, you have to understand the role that you're going to play and how you can affect change. So this very early on from conferences, I started to understand who were all these key players. So yes, just a close-up of engagement. I think as you can see on the ground, these people are still here. This was in 2014. And these same people are still cycling, they're still on the ground, they're still doing work. And then of course, how it works in government is so different. You have to understand how government works and how reaching grassroots works is two different ballgame. I had another picture, but I think I took it out. But it was a meeting in the boardroom in DBKL. That was the first board of directors that we talked to. But now, 2020, we have gone through 5 changes, 5 rounds of different directors. So just imagine that people on the ground remain the same. We understand what's the matter. We understand how to advocate for that. But when you go into government, they change every year. So you have to start from ground zero again, re trying to push your agenda across. So it's always a very it's a never-ending work as an advocate. It's a lifelong process. So you have to understand how government works. You have to understand how to create projects in order to create benchmarks for future people. So what you see here is actually a focus group for the master plan. So this was probably the biggest benchmark, you could say, that this project had, which is the initiation or actually the plan, the master plan for pedestrian and cycling. It's already finished. It's already been handed over to DBKL. So now they are in the stage of planning the implementation. And then, of course, my role now, my job is done. I started this project is to create a tool, to create a map. And this map, when I made it, KL didn't have anything about cycling. KL didn't even think that it was possible to cycle. So this map was an aspirational map. It was an advocacy tool. From a design strategy, from branding strategy, you needed to make something tangible, show aspiration, so people can inspire to build that. So I came from that background, so that helped me a lot, and that's why I created the map. So that was my goal, was actually to create a map. Everything else was a bonus, then building the routes and stuff like that. For me, it's just an after effect from the map. So I would say that credit will all go to the city council for their part. But apart from that, I started to also do some consultancy work. into their planning. So then they would show us plans, and then we would comment on them, and also show where the trouble areas and so on and so forth. Yeah, this is the boardroom. So this is the first mayor, and all these people in this room, they're not there anymore. So imagine that from 2015. So every year that happens. So you just gotta understand it's a never-ending game. And also how maps are designed. Map is a language. It depends on what you put on a map that you emphasize. So as a map designer, you have to, or urban planners, you have to understand this control that you have when you make data, because you create the parameters, you create your ideals, and you create your parameters, and then you come up with your visuals, and then you actually can create the emphasis that you want. So that's why the map was important. I had to make the map, and emphasize a lot on cultural as well. So you actually can see a lot of these dots on the maps. Those are all the existing villages that are still left in KL. Some of them since the days of the founding of KL. And we did talk a bit about micro-mobility, but it's called multi-mobility. One of the biggest mistakes they did in the master plan was to just emphasize on cycling. But we have to understand the multi-mode of the vehicle, from PMDs, personal mobility device, to mopeds, to even the elderly, they call it adult mobile, to cargo bikes and so on and so forth. So you actually have to think of it as a multi-mode, multi-genre mobility form. Okay, so then of course it's still not over. This was the most recent demonstration we had on cycling, which is called Bebas Sikal. Done during a coffee morning. We had to sit down in front of DBKL building. So this is life of an advocate, life of an activist. We always have to keep pushing, even though there are plans coming about, but in order to keep them on their toes, this kind of activity is a must. So that's cycling. After cycling, I was approached by Think City to start a project. Something they said like I could come up with a report to what I feel where the city can be improved. So the first project was actually called Building Bridges, but then now it came to improving streets of downtown KL. It's called ISD report for short. It's actually a street audit report of downtown KL and recommendations. This was done immediately after the cycling map project. After I did the cycling map, I started to see a lot of patterns and understand there were a lot of deeper issues that the city faces. It's not just cyclists, it's people don't even walk. So how do we address that? We have to start looking into that. So this report addressed that directly. So from there, we came up with parameters to start a street audit, and then it's a very big report. It's about 300 pages. But in this is just one of the findings. This is the visualization of the data. As you can see, from black to green, there are six classifications. So from black meaning there's no path, there's no place for you to walk at all. Red meaning there's a lot of major obstacles. Orange means there's minor obstacles. And then yellow means it's there's space to walk, but there's still major obstacles. And then green being the areas where you can walk freely. So as you can see, KL is not a walkable city. And also crossing points, you can see also all the crossing points as well. So from there, we crunched the data, and we came up with this ratio of 1 to 3. 1 being that the white space that you see in the center here, which is the minimum amount of space that someone needs to walk, which is 1.2 meters, in ratio to 3 pathways for vehicle lanes. So vehicle lane is about minimum 2.8 to 3.2 meters per lane. So this is the ratio of space given to people to walk rather than people to drive, or vehicle lanes. It's 1 to 3. So it shows you the huge imbalance in terms of space allocation. This is just talking about equality to space, not even equity, it's equality to space. So there is none. Out of this space, out of 40 kilometers of pedestrian path, almost 80% is inaccessible. 72% has no vegetative shade, 90% has no place to sit, 80% has no bins, and there are 367 crossing points, but 80% of them don't even have a crossing provision. So you can see actually it's not even built for walking at all. And then in comparison to roads, there's about 32 kilometers of roads, and 80% of them is fair to new road condition. So you can see how much money they actually spend on keeping the roads. And out of that, only 8% has bus lanes. And 18% of it has parking space. But 82% is illegally parked. So you can see our attitude and behavior is very, very bad. So from this report, we start to paint a very picture of KL. And you can straight away understand why it is a D- city. Because this happens, planners don't plan for people to walk. This is at Bangsa again, Abdullah Hukum, and the only crossing point for PPR flats is right here. You have to risk your life to cross. And also, if you build to paper, Kuala Lumpur is fantastic on paper. But as you can see, behavior changes and design issues. This is where it is. This is opposite General Hospital in KL. Of course, there will be a high number of people with different abilities that will need access. But as you can see, he's waiting for a bus on the road because the build-up area, this is the modern way of DBKL's standard building landscape and barriers for crime and bus stops, but then places to walk. As you can see, the person has to walk along the bus stop in order to cross. So on paper, KL is fantastic, but in real life, it's not. So we have to relook and understand our urban solutions and how to design for behavior and in order to understand how to change behavior. Not just put one solution, one hat fits all. We have to understand, we have to build case by case. So our city is actually built for the able environment. It's actually, this is what our streets actually look like. We have to change the hierarchy. Currently the hierarchy is actually built for this. This is the traffic hierarchy in the context of our city. But in ideal, it's actually, that is what we're actually supposed to build for. People with disabilities, people who walk, people with non-motorized vehicles, and then only followed by other vehicles. So it's actually a shift. We have to understand how to shift from what we have in reality to this ideal. I must say that we are changing. Ever since this report came out, a lot of changes has happened. And of course, the ideal that we're trying to reach is a shared space, exactly to what I showed you before in Penang Road, 1964, shared space. This is actually what Europe is going towards, a shared space environment with very minimal traffic markings and everyone understanding and knowing their space. So we're actually going back in time, quite interestingly, being civic-minded. So it's interesting that we're actually aiming for this. Some of the recommendations, of course, definitely revolve around walkability. Apart from the corridor of building cycling infrastructure, we emphasize walkability as the main recommendation. There were 18 recommendations in this, and each of this denote each of the recommendations from pedestrianizing, back alleys, so on and so forth. Just to show you one of them, pedestrianizing. So central KL, they've already started pedestrianizing some areas, but then how you can then start allocating other areas, how do you make studies, and how do you make papers to start the conversion. And then one of the biggest important part is actually cultural integrity. There's a lot of communities still in KL that have these little pockets. So one of the recommendations is actually to protect the cultural integrity of the city. Environment is also a very important aspect. So you can find these two projects online. You can download the entire report online as well. You can download the map as well. So these are the information that you can use to access it. that is my presentation. I have so far retired from advocating, semi-retired, but I still actively engage when they need. I've actually started a new project which I've just ended recently, which addresses a different idea on the sense of belonging. Maybe I can show you quickly. It's about a photography project. I build my own cameras. I built many cameras, and I travel around Malaysia, Taiwan, and East Malaysia as well. I make photographs. I interview people, and I make art pieces out of that. But in a way, it was actually understanding my roots, where I come from, and trying to address and deconstruct what the nation state is trying to build, this idea of identity. So I'm starting to question that. These are the areas I've been to in KL, in Malaysia, and also in Taiwan. And if you need information about that project, here you can find it here. So that's it. That's what I'm currently doing and what I did before.
Thank you. Congratulations to your exhibition. How did it go?
Good. I think which exhibition are you talking about? The photography.
Yeah, the last one. Was it in KL that we can visit?
I haven't actually done an exhibition yet in Malaysia. I've done a lot in Taiwan and Japan.
Okay.
And Malaysia, I'm still taking my time to write and actually put it together.
I see. Okay, thank you. Yeah, question from the floor. Yvonne, wanna go first?
I don't think I have question. I'm super impressed by what he do from a map, and then it actually affected policies like crazy.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, like your individual initiative project is to deliver the map. So you have never foreseen that it will gonna affect the policy.
I knew it will, but I'm trying to manage my expectation. So like, if I don't expect it, then at least I won't feel depressed and stuff like that. But it's the attitude you need to have, because a lot of activists go down the wrong route. They go down the route of demonstrating and focusing on the negativity. But a lot of projects that I approach, I always focus on solution providing, and also having the effect of change. How can you affect change? So from the studies that I've done, from my background in branding, I brought that forward into my projects. So how can you affect change? It's not by telling someone how they can do stuff, what are they doing wrong, but you can tell them what they can do right to make it happen. So that's why I focus on those areas.
But you're saying semi-retired. So what do you mean by that?
Well, semi-retired because I think the objective of the map has been reached.
Okay, but doesn't mean that, because like for example, like you said, people on the ground, they are still there, but it's always the people on the highest level of the hierarchy keep on changing. So that the mission is lifelong. Am I right?
Yes. Well, I also very early knew that you need to leave space for the next generation. You are the next generation. All of you are the next generation. I've already done this, and you are the guys that want to carry on the torch. You know,
Mitch is the next generation.
Yeah, Mitch,
right.
and Hero, and Megan, and Queenie. All of you are the next generation. So what I've created in the past is a stepping stone. What you have is a map. What you have is the master plan. So what else can you implement on top of that? You know, you don't have to start from ground zero again. So a lot of activists don't understand that. A lot of activists are still in there. The Gurmit Singh, there are a lot of other activists that I know of. They are over 80 years old. They are bitter. They're cynical. They hate the government, and they don't want to work with them. But they're always demonstrating, and they're always there. So I knew something was wrong. I cannot be like that. I cannot go down that route.
I see.
So I created projects where I felt like I needed to have closure. Making a map was closure for me. And then the next generation, like Mitch, you can use the data from that and create a project on top of that. Concentrate on little smaller areas. So then it goes on to the next generation, new energy and new people, new younger people, new ideas. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very fresh perspective in terms of activism, because I understand like some of the leaders, some of the activists, like you say, maybe 80 years old, and then they still insist on I mean, they are not open to new pedagogical kind of approach, or they are not open to new ideas, and then their old ideas doesn't work anymore, and it's not worth advocating again, right?
Yeah.
Okay, understand that. Yeah, I do have some questions. So if you don't mind, I asked. So the first thing would be I actually very impressed by the idea, as in like the Think City project, especially on the analysis of data. Also, may I ask, so all these data, they are targeted on a very small part of KL or the entire KL?
Not entire KL. It's very concentrated into downtown KL. It's about
Downtown,
1
which
kilometer
is
radius, 1 kilometer radius around Masjid Jamet. So you're just talking about really downtown KL. As far up north as Dang Wangi, as far down south as Lake Gardens.
I see.
It's not a very big area.
So technically that data only accurately present downtown, so not the entire KL. Can I say that?
No.
I see. Okay, but why particularly downtown? Because it's the central of the KL.
Well, it's a case study as well, because we're also trying to prove a methodology. You see, when you come up with a methodology, you have to test it on different city models. So KL is not a very old city, but it's also not very advanced. So it's very layered. And so that's why I felt like, well, of course, also Think City is in KL. So that's why it's also a capital city. So it'd be better to be initiated here and to have the biggest impact with DBKL, because all the other city councils copy DBKL. So whatever DBKL does, everybody else will do. So if you do it in DBKL, everybody else will copy that.
I see. Okay. So I mean, apart from the data you got from these analysts, and then also you guys come up with 16 solutions? 18 solutions, and then has any of them really implemented?
Yeah. I think Think City took up 3 of them. There's the back alleys. You can see a lot of these back alleys happening in KL.
Okay.
Even the city council also did a lot of back alleys. They do a lot of the art stuff. But actually,
like in Penang also got a lot.
But you must understand it's in the back alley. But the most important part is actually repurposing the back alley, because a lot of back alleys has been misused. It's very important.
Misused in what sense?
Misused in terms of, I think, changing into an eatery or becoming a car park, or for encroachment. That means the owners of buildings start to encroach into the back alleys. That means people can't pass through anymore. So back alleys in the old days were built as utility roads for drainage, for picking up waste, for delivery of goods. So it had a function rather than being on the frontal. So of course, with a lot of encroachment, then that's why you get to see a lot of waste being on the front of the street. You get to see a lot of people who walk on the street because of this encroachment. So back alley is actually improving its utilities, putting in grease traps, filtrations, improving the drainage, and then of course changing the purpose of the back alleys. So that's just one of them. There's so many.
I see. So we can repeat it. Okay. So, I mean, I think related back to what Mitch has mentioned earlier. So all this data, is it intended, I mean, it's already given to the government. Was it intended to be, I don't know, rather than just put it there, would it be great that all these are in the textbook? Like what you say, education should be a mean to, to educate all this to the youngsters, because we never learn this about in school, you see?
I think it's too boring for people to learn about this. Unless you're
Really?
specifically feel like you're into architecture or urban planning, if you're in university, maybe this report will be interesting.
Yeah.
There are many reports out there, so it depends on what you're looking for.
What are your thoughts, Mitch?
It's not like textbook, but I have tried to I organized like building design course before, but it's for teenagers. But for kids
Yeah,
and
still in high
teenagers,
school.
yeah, it's not like high school, maybe 13 to 15 years old. Yeah, so I think that would be interesting to teach this, to give this awareness or to share this with the younger generation, because I think they might, because they are still young and they would be more energetic and more optimistic about the changes they can make comparing to us, it's like we already know this situation for so long, and yeah, it's like not so motivated to change anything comparing to like the younger generation. I think they are more hopeful. Yeah, like
So
giving all
that's the reason why we need young activists, not old activists, is it?
They make the mistakes. You have to make mistakes because the old people, they already know everything. They know too much, so that's why they're quiet and they're so negative. They don't want to do anything, unless it already is really important. Whereas young people, they feel strongly about something. They have the passion, they have the idea, and they're willing to take the step. And even if they make a mistake, it doesn't matter because it creates some form of attention to it. So that's important.
I see. That's great. Okay, thank you. I think my next question would be, so you I think I have two questions. So one question it's regarding to the e-scooter and PMD that I presented very, very early on. That's addressing to the both speakers. And also my second question, the second question would be, what are the other cities in Southeast Asia that is actually doing good in this aspect? So I'm talking about, it's either like Vietnam, Hong Kong, Singapore. Yeah, so that would be my two questions before we end today's sharing.
It's where you stay. Where you are staying is doing the best. Singapore. I think
really?
Singapore is doing, I think Singapore is doing really good.
Why would you say so?
It's not to like super good extent to like comparing to like those cities in Europe, but
is Europe the best?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, but Singapore is doing really good because last time when I visit the URA, they have these posters like for inclusive urban mobility and the things they have done to promote these things, and also their working experience, and also their particularly on the landscape design is doing really good job, which encourage people to walk. I mean,
living in Singapore, I'm not too sure if perhaps friends from Singapore, Eugenia or Wanda can share. So I mean, living in Singapore for 2 years, really more walkable as compared to KL. I studied in KL for 4 years, so it does have an impact. But then I just want to hear from you. So apart from infrastructure, you think the mentality of the people does make a difference?
Yeah, because I think they constantly have these materials like to promote the awareness, and also like the connection, and also like the city itself is small, so yeah, it's a high density, so it in that terms it is better, it's easier to carry out in Singapore. Yeah, but I think Hong Kong is quite good as well.
Okay.
But maybe maybe you can ask Queenie also, because she was living in Hong Kong and also in Dell, so maybe she can like give us a better insight, like comparing these two cities.
Queenie, do you mind?
In terms of walking or in terms of biking?
You can share both. It's fine.
I feel like when I was in the Netherlands, right, they put so much emphasis on cycling that I feel a bit marginalized as a pedestrian.
Oh, really?
I feel like I can't go anywhere without a bike. Like the first thing when I get there, I just feel like I need a bike to have my human rights on the road in this country. Like and I think the pedestrian is definitely better than here, like walkability and stuff. But
very interesting. I mean, you're interested in the Netherlands part. So why would you say that as a pedestrian, it feels like it doesn't design for pedestrian at all, is it?
it's also designed for pedestrian, like compared to KL, it's more designed for pedestrian, but they give more emphasis on cyclists than pedestrians. So the hierarchy is cyclists, pedestrians, and then cars.
I see.
Yeah. So you can cycle, you can even cycle to another city, or you can cycle from Amsterdam to Rotterdam if you want.
And
It's very well.
How is that compared to Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, I think Hong Kong it's not so bike friendly. Mainly because there are a lot of cars, and also it's very hilly. And the Netherlands is a very, very flat country. But Hong Kong is quite walkable, I think. And also the mass transportation is quite good, well connected. And also another city that I really like is actually Taipei.
Okay.
Taipei is a model that we can actually learn from, because like Barcelona feels a bit far-fetched. It's like in Europe, and then it has a different climate, but then Taipei it's an Asian context, and then it's
But in terms of geography wise, which Taipei very similar to KL or Malaysia, any part of Malaysia?
the climate, I think, like a lot of rain and very sunny, very hot as well. And also the reason I mentioned Taipei is because they basically, like, it's quite similar to Barcelona. It's quite gridded, but then instead of very wide sidewalks, they have very wide, what do you call it, kaki lima, the space in front of the shop house.
Then it's no longer kaki lima, it's kaki 10 or kaki 12, right?
Yeah, and then it's covered because it's like you have the overhang, right? So it's covered, so you're covered from the rain and the sun. But then it's well connected throughout the city. Like every kaki lima, when they come together, it forms a comprehensive network where you can just walk freely. So I think like in Malaysia, we also have this kaki lima space, but then it's not coordinated within from block to block. So you can't like walk from one block to another, and also within the same kaki lima, you have these obstacles and then steps and then
to climb the stairs.
Even the kaki lima in Penang. Sorry, you're saying. Please continue first.
Yeah, I think in Taipei they used to occupy a lot of the kaki lima as well with their motorcycles, scooters, and the stuff from the shops. But then now there are laws that regulate this to say that to limit like how far you can put your stuff as a shopkeeper and which areas are allowed for you to park your scooters. So after this whole regulation thing, it's much more walkable than before.
I see. I was gonna say just now I'm not sure Yvonne's agree with me, was the kaki lima in Penang as well. I mean, although we have a lot of stretch of shop houses, I mean, generally I think Penang, the walkable area is only in the central area, and apart from that, other places are just as messy as we've seen in other part of Malaysia. So I also understand that all this infrastructure also concerned about the size of the country. I mean, Singapore is able to do it also because of the size, the scale, as you compare to a larger country, and it's unfair. It's not apple to apple comparison. So, but if you're taking Penang as an example, I just feel like all this kaki lima, it's only those shop houses that has been gentrified, taken over by a private company, and then they wanted to do it as an F&B or like an Airbnb host, and then they renovate the entire area. They make a very nice kaki lima for you to walk, and then you walk happily, and suddenly, you drop into another kaki lima, which is this shop house is not taken care by its owner or is abandoned there, and then government has no initiative of like, I mean, technically government has no right to take over that plot of land because it doesn't belong to them. So the inconsistency, it's really there. You have a very nice and suddenly abandoned kaki lima, then a normal one, then suddenly very nice and then abandoned again. Yeah.
There's another point like Mr. Nick mentioned, which is the kaki lima is being blocked by like stuff. Like some owners, they will put stuff in the kaki lima, and then you couldn't walk through that kaki lima. You have to go out to the road and then you walk past that stupid house.
Yeah. True.
Well, in Malaysia, kaki lima was invented by the British. So actually the 5-foot way belongs to the shop or belongs to the landlord.
Yeah.
But he needs to give free and easy access for people to use. So of course that is not always the way. Even I read some books from the beginning of KL. It already stated right at that time already people were already putting things on the 5-foot way. So it's just behavior of us. I think in Taiwan it's also exactly the same. Because it belongs to the owner. It's only the state government or the city council that can enforce this freeway. So on top of that, and another issue is that the city is sinking. KL city is sinking. Well, actually, all the cities in Malaysia are sinking.
Sinking like Venice kind of sinking.
Well, yeah. So the emphasis of sinking, meaning that the grade level is going up, is increasing because of the practice of repaving of roads. We do not remove the old layer. We actually add on top of the layer. So if you go to very old parts of KL, most of the grade level is already almost half the shop. So if you go to
Petaling Street.
Yeah, Hang Lekiu, you go to Hang Lekiu, closer to Museum Telecom, you already find that the grade level is already almost half the shop.
Sorry, what level is that? Grade, G-R-E.
Grade level means grade level, walking level. Grade level, walking level.
Oh, okay.
So that means grade 0. So it's just city planning. Our city practices is that we do not emphasize on this grade. So that's why you will just find that actually the city is sinking.
Because it's become heavier and heavier.
Not heavy. It's just they're adding layers. So every 10 years, you increase about 5 to 7 inches. Every 10 years. So if you go,
Do you know why they don't take it off?
they're probably too lazy.
There's no proper code of practice, is it?
Cost too much, and then irrigation, and then all the electrical lines, everything is all embedded. So it causes a lot of flooding.
Pardon my ignorance again. Sorry. So you are saying that this is the land where the houses is, and then the road is keep on piling up where the houses are remaining. So
yes.
So like even when water running off from the road, the water will straight away go into the house. That kind of issue.
Yeah.
I see.
So if you look at very old paintings of KL, you look at old pictures of KL, actually the shops were at least 2 feet above grade level. But now you can see the grade level is already above the shop grade level. So you already can tell how old the shop is by how deep it is.
I see. Sorry, Nicholas. Anyway, go on. Yeah. I really thought it's sinking like Venice kind of sinking.
Yeah. Well, in a way, it is sinking. Like the grade level is going up, and then all the houses are going down.
Okay.
And then that causes flooding and causes irrigation issues.
So, but this issue, was it aware by any of the government agencies or anyone?
Because it happens over time. So now, if you look at the 5-foot way, they're all not the same. So shop owners that have money, they would increase their grade.
Yeah, they'll step up.
And then shop owners that don't have the money, it will be at the original level. So that's why 5-foot way is also not a viable way, because elderly won't be able to go up and down.
I see. That's interesting.
So this is all part of just the system that we inherited.
Okay.
And you have to overcome it.
Back to the questions that what are the other countries that's doing good except from Singapore, Taipei, and what is in your opinion, Jeffrey?
I go to Taipei a lot, so and I.
So you have a bias.
Yeah, but Taipei is also a block city, super block city, because people live in the city. Okay, so we cannot do a direct comparison of what KL and Taiwan can be. But nobody lives in KL anymore. So we have to look at cities where they would address the same way. And also, we cannot compare that to Singapore. We also cannot compare, when I compare Singapore, meaning the CBD, or we cannot compare that to Bangkok, because those are more seaside cities. If you're going to compare something like that, it would be Klang. Because Klang was actually our capital, Selangor capital, before they moved it into KL. So we have to look at cities that have the same geographical issues.
So the one that has the most similarities with us would be?
I wouldn't know, because we are quite unique. Maybe you can look at Ipoh. You look at Ipoh's addressing their issues, one-way system. KL also has a lot of this one-way system. But then that affects our behavior of how we drive. So that's why Penang people and Ipoh people, they drive quite crazy. It's because of the road systems. you would have 4 lanes. You enter from the left, but you want to turn right. You have to cross 4 lanes. So in that way,
That's how we drive lah.
that affected design has affected behavior. So we are not actually building it properly.
I think Nicholas mentioned about Bandung, Indonesia. Any thoughts, guys?
I've not been to Indonesia.
I have not been to Bandung either. Too bad Kush, Jindy or Surya cannot join us today. Yeah, but I think Bandung has been doing, it's arising as a art city, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
But yeah, looking forward to see. Okay, and go down to our last questions, which is the slides that I presented earlier on this very interesting issue of vehicle renting and also all this micro vehicle, because I think I have seen sharing somewhere else. I mean, it seems like a solution in the beginning to an alternative to public transport or cars, but eventually has become a hassle that people don't know how to handle. So what are your thoughts? You want to go first, Mitch?
I think the main issue is because it's not go hand in hand with like the like awareness campaign and also like education, like and also the environment is not that enabling for people. It's not readily able for people to cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see people using electric scooter in MRT station. I thought it's really cool, and I'm so happy. Like, wow, someone is using scooter here. And I'm really happy to see that somewhere in Sungai Buloh. I think Sungai Buloh Kajang Line MRT. So I saw that it's like there's still some hope lah. Like seeing people using scooter somewhere, and also some of my foreigner friends, I saw like when they came here, they would rent a bike or electric scooter. So yeah, I think the method itself is feasible. It's just that the mindset has to be set readily for that, and also as well as complement with infrastructure upgrade as well.
Yeah, because I'm not too sure about the popularity back in KL. Was it very popular over there?
I didn't really see like people cycling like in action, but I saw like those bikes is like everywhere. Like they just simply park. I thought it's very bad. Like they are not using it properly. It's like vandalizing it. So definitely like because talking about dockless bike, like different. There are other cities also using that, like in, I'm not sure about Asian context lah, but I saw it a lot in European cities. Like people, like they could really handle it well, and they will put to the designated station, or they will use the bike the app to get the information where they can get the bike. It's very systematically done. So because I haven't used the bike before, so I'm not sure about the app and system itself, whether it's up to that level for the feasibility. And also, I think the main point is the awareness and also the behavioral change. Yeah.
Would you say like the families, because the families, like back in the Euro examples that you have given, because the families, they practice it. So like my father use it, my mother use it, then my father, mother know how to put back to the dog. So I will follow that kind of path. As compared to ours here.
It's like everyone around you is using it. And yeah, so it's that kind of, and when I was in Cologne, they have this, one of my colleagues, she actually teach like cycling class. So they have a class designed for how to cycle. Cycle in a safe way. So you will learn how to cycle, and like you learn how the legit ways to give signals when you cycle on the road, so you wouldn't feel that, oh, I'm scared to cycle. So I think it's a very good initiative, and yeah, because in Malaysia, that's not so common yet. I think I haven't
Yeah,
seen.
we all learned cycle when we were
Yeah.
only 7 years old. Then it was lesson given by, family.
I would
Yeah.
like to, I want to say one point about KL's bike system though, because the bike sharing system in KL, they do not have like a specific dock. It's more similar to the China ones, where you can just pay on the app and then ride and then just park anywhere. Where in Penang you have a dock. That's why like it's more systematic, you can say. Then people will put back the bike back to the dock. Yeah. So I just want to mention this. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, when I was doing the project, I think I've been approached more than 6 companies. It is that shows the interest of bike shares in KL because it was commercially led. A lot of these companies are here to try to bite into the market of being the bike share system. So that's why you see a lot of it fail, especially those dockless bikes. Most of the time, they were more for data mining rather than actually providing a service for
the public.
Yeah. So that's why I would go back to Taiwan, because it was a city and a government initiative to provide bikes. So it was actually investment rather than a commercial entrepreneurship. So it was only after 20 years that they start to break even, not even make money, to break even. So bike share system is not a commercially viable way of making money. It is actually to provide a service. So that is what a lot of cities are making mistakes. All these companies coming in, we're going to provide you bikes, and then you're going to change overnight your city's KPI. You're going to have a bike share system, and then you can tick that box. And that's what's happening to all the cities. They're all saying, yeah, let's go on board. So that's what's happened in KL. The cheapest tender win. That's why you get the shittiest bike, and then nobody wants to use it. So that's one of our misconceptions that we have.
But how? I mean, if I want to be, debate on this, but I mean, why is it not possible? In the sense that, I mean, they will draw comparison to like car sharing and then like other, and then in hope that bicycle can replace car, right? Yeah. And then why is it need 20 years to really turn over, break even?
Well, break even is in terms of operational cost, not in terms of usage. It's operational cost. So that was the point I was trying to prove, that it's not commercial viable.
And it shouldn't be commercial as well.
It shouldn't be commercial. So, and I see a lot of people talking about data mining. So let me get back to old bike. Old bike, you need to put in a deposit of 53 ringgit, 50 something ringgit. And that they boast of having over 1 million users. So imagine how much money they have in deposits.
I see. And so what happened to the 6 company? They are all shut down in KL.
Yeah.
Is there currently any bike sharing company
in Malaysia? No.
KL?
In KL, no. There are some. I just tried one in Perak, in Ipoh. Well, in Penang as well. I think the best bike share system I've used is in Penang, Link Bike, because they were really designed from I think Taiwan as well. So the Taiwan-based system, a lot of systems that we're trying to sell in Malaysia, all from Europe or from China, and the bikes from Europe are for European size. They're all 26-inch and above, and none of us can ride those kind of bikes because they're so big. Have you ever tried riding a Dutch bike? It'd be impossible. So the Link Bike in Penang is actually built off the platform.
Very Asian catered, is it?
Asian size, Asian height. So actually we have to start looking east in order to look for this kind of bike shares. Of course, not from China. Like China is just trying to make as much money as they can.
I see.
But interestingly, Taiwan's bike were developed specifically for bike share by a bike company. So not by a commercial company looking for a bike to use it as a bike share. It was actually developed by a bike company in collaboration with the government to make a bike share system. So you have a bike specifically built for bike share, an entire system. So they had academics in there, they had the commercial partners on board, and you had the city council to actually fund it. So it took them a lot of years of trial and error Actually, it wasn't U-Bike wasn't your first system. Your first system was C-Bike. C-Bike was done in Kaohsiung. It was, in a way, a pilot project. It was almost a failure because of the payment system, docking system. But from those mistakes, they made U-Bike. So U-Bike is the new design for Asian, for the auntie going to the market, going to different, and then they built infrastructure on top of that. So I would say if you're going to model any city, any system, it'll probably be from Taiwan because they have the best system.
I see, I see. I'm not too sure about the lifestyle of Taiwan, if you don't mind to just share a quick one. So they do use bike daily. It's like the Asian version of Amsterdam, is it?
You could say that, but their city is built on the American model. So it's
okay.
a city before. The entire city is built on grids. And in a way, similar to Barcelona, right? They live in like sort of super blocks or Soho. So you have a shop at the bottom and then 3 floors of residence on top. So if you go to Taipei, you have very dense, everywhere is very dense neighborhoods. People live in the city. So if there's a huge population, they would need, by human behavior, the most convenient way to get from A to B. If it's by car, they will use the car. If it's by walking, they will go by walking. So you have to build an environment which is most convenient for use by people, active mobility. If you make it easy for people to drive, people are going to drive. So there was a case study they did in Sheffield, I think Sheffield in UK, or I can't remember the exact name, but they built a model city to make it so accessible by walking, by cycling, by driving. But then everybody drove because they will always use the most convenient way. So it proved the point that human behavior is they will always use the most convenient way to get around. So you make it tough for people to drive, then people will use.
Yeah, that reminds me of something. There's the director from Copenhagenizer. He introduced this concept called A to B-ism. I will type here. So it is like making cycling the easiest way to do. So everyone will cycle. A to B-ism. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's okay. So there's a theory on that.
Yeah, you make it more tough for people to drive, and make it more easy for people to cycle.
Yeah.
Then more people will cycle.
In a way, you need to work with anthropologists to actually understand about human behavior before we can even do anything about it.
Well, KL had some initiatives. One of it was the entry points. So they have I forgot the term, but then they will charge you. They will charge you for entering the city. So if you drive a car, they have a gantry. I forgot what it's called. This term. But every time you enter the city, like in Singapore, it's called ERP. Whereas here, if you enter the city, you have to pay a fee. So it's told every time you enter the city, you have to pay. And then the other.
London has something similar as well.
Yeah, and they already had this system in the 90s. They already put it up. Everything was in place, but they never turned it on. In KL. Because of it was not politically popular to do that. Anybody is going to do that, you're going to be very unpopular. So it's actually ingrained in our political system. If you want to bring change, sorry, it's coming from a seasoned person, but our local governments, they are not elected. They are appointed. They are appointed by political leaders. So being appointed by political leaders, they would be inclined to political interests. And that is the first barrier we have to overcome, because they will never be in the interest of the people. They will always be in the interest of political gain. So that has to, the biggest barrier that we have to change is actually local governments.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately,
I think we are aware of that. I mean, I think as an individual, it's very hard, isn't it? It has to be a collective. Then when the voice is strong enough.
Well, Zuraida tried to do it. Zuraida, the Ampang MP, she came up with the local government election, but Mahathir turned her down, so that was out. But that was very forward thinking, actually, coming with that. So a lot of activists now and a lot of political analysis now are calling for local government elections, because then you have political will, and then you will start building cities for people rather than for political interest, which is then comes back to why not e-scooter? Because we have a huge barrier on imports of e-scooters. They want to protect the motorbike industry. They want to protect the car industry. We want to make a new car. We want to make, Mate says we're going to make a new car.
A new Proton.
A new car, make a new brand. So it's actually all protective policies. It started, we had a new automobile policy that was set up in the 1970s, which was to give way to the introduction of Proton. So the new ideal of Malaysia is that everybody has a house, everybody has a car.
This is so American, like the American dream way.
It's also a British dream.
Well, govern on that. So actually, we have to change that. We actually have to come up with a new transport policy. So that's
Very hard because we are an oil producing country.
Yeah.
So we're protecting
oil
our
is
industry.
cheaper.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Thank you. So I think the root of the problem, again, we back to government. It's best for us to become governor, I feel.
you must know it's not the stakeholders. You have to know which role you can play. And then how can you bring about change from that role that you play? So making projects like this, that can affect change in a certain way. So from a small project, how can you change people's perception? That is the power that you have.
Yeah, that's why I'm super impressed by your project.
But you can do it too. You can make little projects, build upon that.
Yeah, inspired by you now.
Cool. Well done.
You show me hope.
You guys can do it. You guys have all the expertise. You have all the knowledge and methodology. You're in the urban planning part. You're going to work in government. You're going to work in urban consultants. You can come up with projects that can make this change.
Yvonne, go back AA and change UK.
No, I don't want. I want to work in Malaysia.
You can be the next Eva.
No, I don't want.
Okay, thank you guys. I hope you feel inspired in today's sessions, and thank you again to both our speakers for the very inspiring sessions. I hope you enjoy this 2.5 hours. So before we go, is there any last question from the floor? If there's no last question, we will do the mandatory Zoom fee. So I would like to request everyone to turn on your camera for like a quick 3 seconds. So I'm just gonna look into the camera and then take a selfie. All right. One. Oh, hi Jamin. I see your face. So cute. Oh my god. Wow.
Hello.
Wow. I think that's so happening. Okay, cool. Okay. That's quite cool. Everyone, 1, 2, 3, smile. Right. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, so just want to announce something before we end this session. So today is the 13th. Today is the last 3. So the next one will be 14, the second last, and the last one will be on the 15th session. So I hope to see you guys in the next session. Yeah, hope you enjoy and continue keep the community spirit strong. See you guys. Bye.